This is Another Side of Midnight with TJ McCormack. Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC. Here's TJ McCormack.
Joining us now on Another Side of Midnight with TJ McCormack here on 77 WABC. On this early morning, we are very, very happy to speak with Bishop James Long. He is a bishop he is the bishop in the United States Old Catholic Church. You are the presiding bishop, I believe, and he's a media presence. He is an exorcist, and he is known for his appearances on shows like Ghost Adventures and Portals to Hell and other things throughout the media. I discovered Bishop on TikTok. I was stopped in my tracks one evening, Bishop, a couple of weeks ago by a very unique looking evening prayer. And you've had me from that moment. Welcome to Another Side of Midnight, Bishop.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course, of course. So, actually, before we get to the conversation of the moment that I approached you about, I'm just curious, you have got you have a unique role in the sense that you are with the Old Catholic Church, and just you gave me a very quick synopsis the other night, and just for the edification of everybody listening, just real quick, just please give us the definition, and it's made perfect sense to me. Please just run through what constitutes the United States Old Catholic Church.
Well, yeah, really, it was the 1870s when the Church in Utrecht was given complete autonomy by Pope Leo XIII, because the Pope couldn't keep going back and forth and consecrating bishops, so they were giving autonomy. Total autonomy. Mm-hmm. And the church in Utrecht was becoming rather wealthy. And so then Rome says, okay, now we want your money and your property in the 1890s. And the church in Utrecht said, no, we have complete autonomy. This money comes from the people. This is the community's money. And the church says, nope, you must submit to Rome. Yeah. And we want your property, we want your money. And they said, no, that's not how this works. And so the Roman church called them heretics. And yeah. There was a major split, of course, in the papal infallibility doctrine came about, and so, but it was just it was an overreach. They what they did was wrong, and so really in the Old Catholic Church in the Utrecht, so I belong with that apostolic lines, and a lot of people don't know. There's a article that was written by Dominus Jesus. It's an article that was written by Saint Pope John Paul, and second, and of course also Pope Benedict. And it states that any church that has apostolic succession is considered validly Catholic. And so I have a 110-page documentation showing my apostolic succession to Peter, and I'm also a member of the Order of Corporate Reunion, which is a very respected organization, an established organization that validates people's apostolic succession.
Mm-hmm. And tell me this, you even gave me a great, also quick anecdote about even further proof from the most recent news out of the Vatican. Who was it that was at the installation?
Oh yeah, it was the Bishop of Utrecht. So I mean, that's what I don't understand, this animosity that in the United States, because it just simply doesn't exist in Europe. I don't quite understand it, but I think it's also a lack of education, perhaps. I don't know.
Sure. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that primer. And, again, cause I think it's great for people to know, hey, look, the more you know, as the NBC, campaign went all those years, the more you know. And again, I implore everyone, of faith, not of faith, whatever, but especially of faith, to take a look onto TikTok and search up Bishop James Long, and it is a really cool presence that he has there on TikTok.
Now, make sure you find the right one. There's a lot of fake, fake profiles. So
yeah, you're popular with the scammers.
It is so frustrating because TikTok won't verify my account. And I begged them, I've shown them the shows that I've been on, and they don't care. It's like, and they see all the fake accounts.
Yeah.
And then these people contact them, and then taking people for a lot of money, and then they get upset with me. I'm like, well, all you got to do is click my name.
Yeah.
If they don't have 800,000 followers, it's not me. It's not that hard. I can't.
Wow. How many do you have?
I think it's 780,000.
Goodness gracious. Well, I'll also a little bit later, I'll also put the link on my Twitter, my X, and all my other social media. So Bishop, our conversation tonight, which really is tailor-made for this time of the morning on another side of midnight on 77 WABC, is about, exorcism, and not in a sensational way or, a flashy sort of, although you can't really get too far away from wow. But I as I promised you, I have a very earnest and genuine curiosity about this. And so just off the top, how would you distinguish, how does an exorcist, distinguish between a genuine possession and, say, a psychological condition?
Sure. Well, it's fairly easy, actually. Mm-hmm. A person who is psychologically or mentally ill cannot have the ability of what's called retrocognition or prognostication. Mm-hmm. So retrocognition is the ability to know your sins. Demons can know your sins not because they can read your mind, but because sins fall under what's called ordinary demonic activity, so temptation. So they know your sins because it falls under ordinary demonic behavior. And prognostication is the ability to know the future. And so, like, for example, if you have items within your hand or within your bag or whatever it might be, and then the demon will say, don't touch me with that, first-class relic of St. Francis or something of this nature. So, and not only that, but we also require psychological evaluation to rule out dissociative identity disorder or schizophrenia, mental illness. So it's not something, I don't perform exorcism on command. It is a process because you perform exorcism on someone with DID, otherwise it used to be known as multiple personality.
Right.
You can create another identity. So it's very, very dangerous. So these people playing exorcists and doing deliverances on people without psychological evaluations, it really is a disservice. And of course, most of those people that do this charge an arm and a leg. So, so not only are you actually hurting the possibility of hurting someone on a mental level, psychological level, but you're also now hurting their pocketbook because you're charging an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah. But
in the old Catholic Church, we don't receive a stipend. We receive no salary, no stipend, no church. We fund the ministry with our own pocket. And so and even within the old Catholic Church as well, I mean, there are some jurisdictions that are very conservative. Some are very liberal. Some are moderate. There are some old Catholic jurisdictions that will ordain women and some will not. So it just depends on the jurisdiction itself. But with us, we don't charge. I've never charged in 25 years. I've never charged for a deliverance, never charged for an exorcism. I pay for it out of my own pocket, so I get the people's funds.
Wow.
And I do that primarily because, number one, people are so desperate that they're willing to do anything and give anything.
Yeah.
And you can't. First Peter says, "Don't give the devil a chance to work on you." So if I said, "Well, I'll charge $5,000," then $7,000, then $10,000, then $15,000. So with us, I've taken a vow of poverty. I'm a Benedictine, and so we don't charge. Never have, never will.
Wow. So I know a young Catholic man will go through a period of discernment to determine if that call is real and right and appropriate for them to become a priest. There's got to be, as you move on and you become ordained and you are a priest and you're a working priest, and how does one find themselves? How did you find yourself in a position to become an exorcist? Is that a calling within the calling? Is that like literally thrown in front of you, or is it? How did that come about for you?
Yeah, for me it was a calling. Now I grew up Roman Catholic, and then I even studied for the Roman Catholic priesthood for 6 years. So I studied with the Benedictines, I studied with the Jesuits. I knew I wanted to be a priest when I was 5 years old. And my whole life was planned out. You know, I was going to be a Roman Catholic priest. I was going to have a parish. Life was going to be good. I'd have a stipend, a salary, and things would be taken care of. I wouldn't have to worry with the monetary issues. I could focus 100% on
It is a nice life. It is a nice life.
It's a great sacrifice. It takes 8 years of studying, and there's a lot of sacrifice. But
indeed.
And in the last year of the graduate school, God began to call me in the old Catholic Church, and I didn't want to go because I didn't know what that meant. Well, how do you fund your own ministry? How am I supposed to do this? And so for a year, I ran from the calling, and I ignored it, and I avoided it. And the calling got louder and louder. And eventually my spiritual director, who was a Roman Catholic priest, said, listen, if God is calling you to do this, you need to listen. And so I finally said, okay, if this is where you need me, this is where I'm going to go.
Right.
But for me, I knew I wanted to be a priest when I was 5. I remember being in kindergarten, and the teacher asked us what we wanted to do, and I told her. And then I told my mom we were going to church. And my mom said, what did you tell your teacher you wanted to do? And I pointed at the priest and said, I want to do what he does. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Wow.
And I began reading books on demonology when I was 9.
Wow.
I was one of those kids that loved the local library. Matter of fact, I loved it so much, I eventually worked as a part-timer, as a clerk. And I read as much as I could on demons.
Really?
It became an obsession. I had to learn more. And as I progressed,
did that just fall in your lap, Bishop? Maybe was there a moment? Did you have an experience, or did somebody or did?
Well, no, I just knew I wanted to learn about demonology. That was just a call. I just knew that's what I wanted to do, and so I read. Of course, when I was 9 years old, I had a difficult time reading some of the theological, because some of it is difficult, the jargon terms, but. But no, I read, and I read more, and I couldn't stop, and it became such a deep passion of mine that it was just a second part. It was my nature. It was just who I was, and I just wanted to read as much as I could. It was important for me, and I didn't understand why then. I just knew that was my passion. Like some people like reading about sports, or that's their passion. Well, this was my passion.
Okay, and so. Once you became a priest and you were a working priest, how were you able to get into? How were you able to become an exorcist? How did that happen? How did you tell the larger church, your bishop at the time, how did you go to them and say, or was it just that? Say, look, put me in, Coach. I'd like to learn this.
No. Actually, I had the opportunity to meet, even in the Roman Church, an exorcist, and I was able to speak to him about demonology and the rite. And that was a very, very blessed. I had a blessed opportunity to do that, and he was very straightforward and forthcoming on all the information, and it was a plethora of information. And I actually talked to the Archbishop at that time when I was in the seminary, and I let him know that this was something that I felt like I was being called to do. And he was actually considering, there was a school in Rome, and so the goal was to eventually, perhaps send me to Rome in training. But really, with the information that I was being presented with the exorcist, as I was speaking to him, I had talked to the Archbishop at the time. I said, look, I don't know if this is even necessary, because I'm getting basically the information that I need, all the information that, and he was trained. And it was like all the information, so it would save a lot of money to the Archdiocese. And so the Archbishop was actually pretty interested in just allowing me to learn a bit more, even from other exorcists. So it was just kind of up in the possibility realm of, well, do we send him to Rome, or do we just have him, learn from exorcists here?
Sure.
Obviously, because it's expensive. It's not cheap.
Right.
So, and then, of course, thankfully, with the old Catholic Church, I met up with an exorcist, and I was able to speak to him, who served for quite some time, I think 45 years in ministry. And so with that training and the training that I received in the seminary, when I became a priest in the old Catholic Church, then it was decided that we needed an exorcist.
And so, again, everyone, we are joined by Bishop James Long of the Old Catholic Church of the United States here on 77 WABC. It's another side of midnight. And Bishop, I wonder, what are there any differences in how the old Catholic Church would perform exorcisms versus the Roman Catholic Church? Are there any differences or any nuances?
Yeah, not with me, because I was trained in the actual rite itself.
Oh, okay.
So for me, no, I actually use the solemn rite.
Interesting. And just to loop back, by the way, also, I've always wondered this one too, because, and forgive me, I meant to ask this as a follow-up for our first question, but had you ever, when it comes to determining, I know there's a long process, to determine if someone is simply or whatever is unfortunately mentally ill or possessed. Have you ever have you encountered, a situation where there was an initial suspicion of possession that ultimately turned out to be a mental illness, or vice versa? Was there ever a situation where a little mixed messaging there, and eventually it was determined, no, we do not have a possession here?
I mean, no, because we're pretty thorough in our investigation. So what we normally do is, when I first started this 25 years ago, I really didn't have a whole lot of resources. Actually, I had no resources.
Wow.
And so in the paranormal community, I was friends with a lot of the paranormal teams that are very, very experienced in the investigation. And so I decided that I needed to create a network, because I couldn't be in California or Texas or New York, and how was I supposed to possibly expect to run every single case? Because when you had thousands of requests, there's no way. I don't have my private plane.
Right.
So what I did is I began creating a network of teams all around the United States. Teams that were experienced, that tried to debunk, that was their goal, that didn't believe everything was demonic. And I began creating a network because it had never been done before. And so I said, let's create this network of teams. And then if I have a case in California, I can dispatch this team. They go out, they try to debunk the activity,
Sure.
They gather all the information, and then they present the evidence to me and say, look, this is what we captured. And then based on that, I can determine, okay, now we need to proceed with are we dealing with the minor rite of exorcism, or are we dealing with the solemn rite? Are we dealing with someone who's possessed or someone who has a demonic infestation?
What's the difference? Sorry, I'm cutting you off, and I'm so sorry about that, but boom, that just jumped up right there. What's the difference?
The minor rite of exorcism is reserved for in case you don't perform an exorcism on a house that doesn't exist. You bless the home. You perform an exorcism on the demonic entity that has infested itself within the home. So that's the minor rite of exorcism. The solemn rite is when an individual is possessed and has gone through the stages of oppression, obsession, and possession. Actually, technically, it's infestation, oppression, obsession, and then possession. But there's also a term called deliverance. Now, a person who has an attachment, so let's say they're paranormal investigating, they go out and they say, come on, demon, I dare you to do something, I dare you to do something. Well, I've been telling paranormal teams, you're not provoking, you're inviting. And there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah.
And so a demonic then can attach itself to you, and then you have the stage of oppression and a possession. So oppression is when the demonic will begin to attack you on a physical level. It's breaking your will down, biting, scratching, pinching. And then, of course, demonic obsession is when it begins to attack the intellect. And so you begin to hear it, and it's speaking to you. The point of that is to break the person's will and intellect, so then the person becomes at a weakened state so the possession can occur. Now, you can pray a prayer of deliverance. So let's say a person has a demonic attachment. Okay. You can pray a deliverance to remove that attachment from the person. But then you got to be careful, because if the person has a demonic attachment and you pray a prayer of deliverance, depending on where that person is in the stage of oppression and obsession, you could cause that person to go into what's called transient possession. Whoa. So that's when the demonic will enter the body and leave at will. So you got to be careful, because if you're praying a prayer of deliverance, even laity can pray a prayer of deliverance. That's called supplicating exorcism. So you can pray over somebody who is demonic, who has a demonic attachment. They are oppressed. You can pray for the removal of that attachment. But you got to be careful, because if you do that, you are provoking. And depending on where that person is in the stage of oppression and obsession, that person could go into transient possession, and then you're in trouble, because you cannot perform the solemn rite of exorcism. So that's the difference. The solemn rite is when a person has gone through the stage of oppression, obsession, and then they lead into possession.
Oh, my goodness. What are some of the most consistent manifestations of what you're talking, say, in a legitimate, full-blown case of possession, a full possession, because again, and that calls for a solemn rite, correct? I'm sorry, is that what you just said?
That is correct. An extreme aversion to religious objects, superhuman strength, and again, the term's called retrocognition and prognostication. Mm-hmm. So, and sometimes the eyes can go solid black or white. Sometimes there could be a form of levitation. I've seen something like a form of levitation, but not like you saw in The Exorcist, but I have seen a form of levitation. Markings can appear on the body. So, yeah, certainly those are, and in some cases, like Annalise McKell or The Exorcism of Emily Rose, she omitted a terrible smell. And oftentimes she had problems. And she was a very devout Roman Catholic. Her family was too. And so she was, that's the movie Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yes.
But yeah, she would describe the figures as ghastly when she saw these demonic beings attacking her. So I would say those are the manifestations.
Have you ever been in the middle of an exorcism where things escalated in a surprising way and okay, part B for you to just go ahead. A, okay, in the middle of it, things escalate. B, and then have you come out the other end of one of those exorcisms saying, okay, I need to reevaluate, kind of like a coach at halftime, okay, where they make changes in their game plan. You come out of that, or actually maybe in the middle of, I'm sorry, let me take that almost like a point one, 1.A question. A, things escalated and you had to change your game. B, in the middle of the exorcism, have you had to leave the room, huddle up, and then reconvene? And then again, the third part of that question is, have you then come away from an exorcism experience and that has taught you a few things and you've taken that with you and because it's just completely, or not completely, but it's definitely changed, one or two things about your understanding of demonic activity?
Yeah, there was my first exorcism. I wasn't the primary. I was the secondary. I was the assistant. And I had always read about the possibility of the eyes going black and the change in the environment and throwing the voice. And so I've read about it, but when you're actually in the presence of someone who's fully possessed, it's a different perspective. And can
you tell me the setting? And I'm not interrupting completely. I'm just sort of a little direction here. If you don't mind, if you could you maybe paint a little picture of what that was like, your first time as a second walking into that situation? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm dying to know what that was like.
Yeah, when we walked into the room, it was a girl, and she was younger. She was 19, 20, 21. I'm not going to get specific, so I don't want to get too much.
Of course,
but
don't want you to. Of course,
it was very calm. And when we walked into the room, she just kind of looked at us, and smiled, and just laid back, just laid in the bed. And the whole room changed at that moment. It was just, it felt like a sauna. If you've ever been to a sauna, it feels heavy.
Yes.
But I mean, we could feel a temperature change. And so we began praying what's called the Litany of the Saints. And then you check the eyelids to see. Well, I'm not going to go into detail, but you check the eyelids, and I checked, and so I walked over and I checked the eyelids, and the eyes were solid black. There was nothing. I mean, it was just, the only way to describe it, I could even see my reflection in the eyes. There was nothing. And at that moment, I couldn't move, I couldn't talk, I couldn't think. I just felt like prey. I was looking in the eyes of an apex predator. That's what it looked like. It was just, there was nothing. I couldn't move. I was completely catatonic.
Now, were you catatonic because of your reaction to it, or were you catatonic because of your proximity to it?
I was very close, and...
Do you know what I mean, though? In other words, was it reaching out? Were you getting the impact of this possession?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Holy cow.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, it was affecting me because when I saw it, I wasn't expecting to see my reflection. I couldn't move. There's nothing. And so the primary then grabbed me the collar. He did a blessing, asked if I was okay, could I continue, and we did. But that was the time that I saw a form of levitation. And when she was laying down on the bed, it was like something had put a rope around her waist, and she just lifted almost like a V shape.
Okay.
Her vertebrae I heard her vertebrae. I thought she had broken her back because there was a loud crack, and you can tell that she wasn't trying to do a V shape, where her torso was up in the air,
right,
and her legs and her head was, on the bed. So it wasn't like, you can tell when people are trying to do it, it wasn't like that at all. It's like someone had put a string around her and just lifted her up.
Right.
So we continued on the right. And these are polishes, and the screaming is called throwing the voice. So what they'll do is, and it tries to disorient you. So like if they're screaming, it's like an 8D surround sound. If you go on YouTube and type in 8D surround sound, and you can listen to, you put headsets on it feels like it's all around you. It's going all around to disorient you. These are parlor tricks. These are parlor tricks that the demon is absolutely deploying and employing. Sure, absolutely. Wow. And then, of course, the moment when you pray the rosary, that is the moment when you get the most violent reaction, and it's very violent. So that was the first exorcism. Well, that was the first exorcism that I've ever performed that kind of opened my eyes in a way to. It's one thing reading about it and talking about it, and watching it in the movies, but when you're there, it's a different reality. And I think the one case where I had to reevaluate and readjust is I was working a case on an incubus case. Okay. An incubus case is when a demonic entity will attack you on a sexual nature, not because there is actual relations. Right. It is because it's a manipulation of the muscles. Okay. And she was 68 years old, and the person, and she was in the hospital, and her doctor and her daughter called me. They were on a conference call, and they called me, and they said they'd watched me on some show or something, I don't know. And the doctor had said, I can't explain medically why this is happening to her. And so I'm not going to get into details because I don't know your audience, but I can just... I understood. No, you're cool. Go ahead. You can... Good boundaries. So I'll just simply say her frontal area and her anal area had been ripped. Jesus. That was requiring sutures. Wow. And so it was trauma. She described it as a plunger. Right. So she would describe them as bed walkers. We're the only team in the entire world that actually has an incubus. You can see it in the video where her bed sheets rise 4 feet from the bed, then fall, and rise, and then fall 4 feet. Anyway, they had on the conference call, and they said, look, this is not medical. This is something supernatural, and we need your assistance. So I worked with her. That was one case that I began to question, my abilities and whether or not I'm holy enough, smart enough, good enough to be it. Because she suffered this for 5 years, and I worked with her for 3, and I couldn't make it go away. And I grew to love her and her family. She was like a grandmother. I mean, she was just a sweetheart of a woman, but she was going through hell. Literally. And, wow. Literally. What a turn of phrase. So I went to one of my mentors, who happened to be a Roman Catholic Benedictine monk. Mm-hmm. And I went to him and I said, look, because I studied with the Benedictines, and I said, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And I'll never forget what he said to me. And this was my wake-up call that I needed. And he said, hey, James, do me a favor. I said, sure. He said, get off the cross and let Jesus have a try. Wow. I said, what do you mean? I said, that's kind of rude. He said, no. He said, all I hear you say is I. You're feeding your ego. You're doing nothing. Wow. This person will be delivered in God's time, not yours. You're an instrument. You are there to humble yourself and to obey. And then when she is delivered, will be in God's time, not yours. And so I needed that because I was taking it personal. Sure. And because I wanted this to stop for her. Yes. And so that was important. And when that was the breakthrough that I needed. Absolutely. What an epiphany for you. It was. But the last year of her life, she was no longer being attacked. Now, she still described the bed walkers. She would describe them as 3 10-pound dogs walking towards her and then holding her down. But she could feel the dogs, but they no longer touched her anymore. But she could feel them, but they no longer touched her. And then the last year of her life, she lived free from that. And then when she passed of natural causes, the family asked me to officiate, a funeral.
Oh, lovely. Nice. Oh, good. I'm glad you're able to have that amount of closure and that she had peace in that last year. Thank God. Everyone, we're speaking with Bishop James Long, of the Old Catholic Church of the United States. We're talking about exorcism, and it's the most, thank God, because it's my show. It's the most fascinating conversation that I've ever heard in my time listening to different genres of radio. I feel so blessed that this is happening on another side of midnight, this conversation. Bishop, how do you prepare going in? I'm sure there's a lot of prayer. Is there a physical preparation that you go through when you're about to go in and you're putting on your uniform? What's your prep?
Usually there's a 2-week fasting period.
Wow.
Of prayer and fasting. And, so for me, that's, of course, I always pray the daily office anyway. And so for the daily office is just a natural, that doesn't change, but the prayer activity increases, more rosaries, more time with the Blessed Sacrament, and certainly more, I think, a little bit more stringent on the fasting. So.
Okay. And so, what's been the most difficult? I mean, we hear cops, firemen, doctors, they try to leave the job at the job. It's a little bit different, but at the same time, what's the most difficult? Do you proactively, do you have a post-game ritual? Do you, I guess my question is, first of all, I was going to ask, what's the most difficult after effect that you've experienced coming out of a particularly grueling exorcism? And I guess I got another part B here. I guess the part B would be, you have your build up, you have your couple of weeks of fasting and prayer. What's your cool down, if you will, coming out of this? Because I would imagine, you have to ward off PTSD. You have to ward off, you have to try to keep the job at the job. I mean, you don't need to be waking up at night with nightmare. So go ahead. I'm sorry. So you have your prep. How do you come out of it? And what's been some of the more difficult after effects that you've experienced?
I think the most difficult after effects really is, first of all, you have to get the individual counseling, certainly spiritual counseling. And not only that, but also the family, because the family has seen their loved one deteriorate.
Yeah.
At a sometimes rapid rate, sometimes a steady process, and then there's not much they can do, and they see their loved ones, in this horrible state. And so the ongoing counseling is absolutely crucial. I mean, that's fundamental, not only on a spiritual level, but also on an intellectual level as well, because sometimes that's necessary for the family as well as the individual. So I think that sometimes can be complicated, only because insurance or other problems. When the person needs or the family needs some type of therapy after seeing, because it's very traumatic. It's very, very traumatic. And I think for me, the hardest part, honestly, of doing this ministry is not dealing with demons. Because I'm not intimidated by them.
Yeah.
The hardest part is having to tell families I can't get to them.
That happens.
Yeah, because, if they're living in California and, as I said...
I'm sorry. I thought you meant, you can't, that you couldn't do that you tried and the exorcism wouldn't take. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
No, the hardest part... I performed 33 so far, and thankfully, They've been successful. But the hardest part, because I receive, again, no stipend,
Right.
no salary, and getting to people is expensive. And
Yes.
so you have to do fundraising and even selling things that you own, even putting, thousands of dollars on your credit card, which I've done.
Right.
And so the hardest part of this ministry is being on the phone, and when a family legitimately has issues and clergy won't help them because they're not a part of their parish or that church community, or they don't give enough money in the collection, and then clergy won't help. The hardest part is having to tell them, I can't get to you right now. You're in California. The expense is very high right now, and then them crying and begging and pleading, and that took a toll. That took a toll on me. In 2015, I was dying. I was 425 pounds.
Wow. I did see a photo that I didn't recognize. And that is you.
Yeah, that's me. I was in trouble.
Wow.
I was in deep trouble because, how I coped is I went to sugar. If I was sad, I went to sugar. If I was happy, depressed, anxious, I went to sugar and carbs. And that was the way I coped because of having to tell families I can't get to you right now, and then them begging and pleading, and that took a toll. That took a major toll. And so I had to take a year off and say, okay, I'm clearly being oppressed myself, and I've got to take a year off and focus on my health and get this, in check, because if I don't. So, yeah, I was in serious trouble.
Wow.
But that's because if you're clergy, you want to help.
Yes.
And then when you have to tell people you can't, that breaks your heart.
Oh, I can only imagine. And so I guess so you took a sabbatical of sorts for your own health. And I know that I've clearly, since I guess 2016, 17, you're back in the game. There's a lot of people that are grateful for that. And so, so I'm just we went way longer. And it's so late for you. So thank you so much for staying up. And I'm going to wrap it very, very shortly, but just very quickly, I guess I want to end on how I found you, and what a blessing to have found you. And again, who is you? We're talking to Bishop James Long, Bishop of the Old Catholic Church of the United States, and he is here with me, TJ McCormick, on Another Side of Midnight on 77 WABC on this early morning in this fascinating conversation about exorcism, and so I guess a couple of just very quickly, do you find that the movies and media and all of these different multimedia platforms, everything from where I found you, TikTok, to all the Netflix, all the streaming, all the television, has that made people more open to seeking help? Has that expanded people's knowledge and range of thinking and willingness to reach out for this sort of help? And B, it clearly just, this multimedia world that we're living in now, is it helping to spread the word, in your case specifically, about the Old Catholic Church? And, so tell me about this realm that you have really done an incredible job mastering. It's really fascinating.
Well, look, it's for me. I think it's a double-edged sword because with all the movies, it was able to give people, and I think the belief that it's okay that there are other people that are going through this, because when I first started this, there wasn't many people talking about it because a lot of people were afraid people would think they were crazy.
Right.
And then when the shows came out, it let people know, hey, look, there are people from all walks of life that are dealing with this, and that. Although there were very limited clergy out there helping, that's why I filled it. I didn't want to fill it. I wanted to be quiet. I wanted to be private. But I had so many friends in the paranormal community saying that, they didn't have any clergy. I was friends with Lorraine Warren. And even she had talked to me and said, look, there's such a need. There was a massive need for clergy in this field. So I think it's a double-edged sword because it's good because it lets people know that they're not alone and that there are a lot of people in many socioeconomic situations and classes and education and all this stuff that are dealing with the supernatural paranormal activity. But also it's also concerning because there are a lot of people now in the paranormal community playing demonologists and exorcists, so they're going around to places that are known to have demonic infestation, and come on, demons, I dare you to do something, and then they have major problems.
They take out their little doctor bag and grab a Bible and some holy water.
Exactly, and that's what they're doing, and that's very dangerous because I've been teaching for 25 years in the paranormal community. Stay away from these locations that are known to have demonic activity.
Right.
Why get yourself in that situation? Why put yourself in that position? And so there's a lot of people that are, playing demonologists and doing things that they have no authority to do.
God, that's just stupid. It's
rampant. And not only that, but now what's really hot right now, unfortunately, is people collecting items that they claim are they have a demonic attachment.
Oh my gosh. Like what?
I have a facility. I have a storage facility full of items that people brought home to their home, and all hell broke loose in their home. And I have John Wayne Gacy paintings.
Oh my, wow.
I have a doll that, without question, burned down I'm on a show called Eli Roth Presents Legion of Exorcists. You can watch it on HBO Max. And the family brought this doll into a McMansion home in Tennessee. And this is a big, beautiful home, and it's a porcelain doll that looks like it's an old jester doll.
Okay.
And
creepy.
They brought this home, and I was called by the chief of the fire department and this family. I'm like, well, I don't know anything about fire. So they said, just please, can you get here? So I drove there. And I saw this massive lot with just ash everywhere. And then this ornate bookshelf with a doll sitting on top of the bookshelf. I'm thinking, what are they doing? So I pulled in. I said, okay, what's going on here? They said, well, let me show you. The wife showed her the foyer. She said, now turn right in the formal living room. Here's the doll. And the doll was not destroyed at all. This house was burnt to a crisp. The fire chief said it burnt so hot they have no explanation why a porcelain doll was not burnt, because everything, even the wall behind it, was burnt. It was burnt down to nothing. There's burnt marks on this doll, on the clothing, and you can still smell it. And she said, please take this away, because we brought this home, and that's when the activity started. So here's what I did. I went to Louisville Mid-South Paranormal Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, where I teach about demonology, and I did a paranormal conference, and I have this doll in the case. And people kept asking me to take it out of its case. Normally I never do, but they kept on. And so I said, fine. I took it out of its case. Immediately the room changed.
Oh, no.
It felt that heaviness. And they said, put it back. So I put it back. And they said, put it back. So as I was putting it back in its case, someone asked me a question, and I got distracted. Now, I have been saving for a laptop for quite some time. I bought one from Best Buy. I was very happy with it, and I put it next to my laptop.
And we are going to take a very, very quick break. Hold on right there, please, Bishop Long. We shall return. 77 WABC. Got to get this in.
It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist T.J. McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC. Here's T.J. McCormick.
Screamed, Bishop Long, your laptop is on fire. I turned around. This was a whole room of people witnessed. My laptop was actually on fire.
Next to the porcelain doll.
And as a matter of fact, a CAPS Paranormal, I took the doll to West Virginia, Moundsville, as a paranormal conference, and he asked if he could do a FLIR camera. I said, well, sure. And so he did this FLIR camera on the case, and they said, can you open the case up? Okay, so I opened the case up. He had the doll. There was a 400-degree change on the FLIR camera. It radiated so much heat. And he's like, I can't explain this. I don't understand this.
I know you're a bishop, but dude. Dude. Whoa. That. Yeah, oh my Lord.
I have some artifacts. I have some items. I've been doing this for 25 years. But I have
Sure.
some items that when you see them, it is, they are very, very, very dangerous. And so when I pass away, when the good Lord calls me home, they're willed to the church. So they won't be going to secular.
I'm sure they're rubbing their hands together. I'm sure they can't wait there, Bishop.
Yeah, that's going to go to, yeah. These are some dangerous items.
Oh,
but people are collecting them. They're collecting them.
Wow. Well, and look, and that's certainly a product of social media and all the multimedia and all the conversation and
with Annabelle.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. Bishop, we went way over. And my producer dudes are going to be frustrated because I'm going to beg them to edit this so that we can actually present it in its entirety. Bishop James Long, the best place for people to find you. You're all over the media. Where would you say, what's the best spot?
My website, bishopjameslong.com.
bishopjameslong.com. And look, gang, it's a great, lovely way, every night at 10 o'clock, every weeknight or
Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have Compline, we have night prayer, and then Sundays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. we have Bible study. Fridays at 7 p.m. is our Friday night paranormal show, and then at 8 p.m. Saturday is our paranormal weekend show that we do.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And listen, Bishop, I am so grateful. This came together very quickly. You took my call this week, one of the busiest men out there, and I was so grateful to have hooked you on the phone and then for you to say yes so quickly. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Another Side of Midnight here on 77 WABC. You're going to be back. So I am so grateful, and God bless. Thank you so much, Bishop James Long.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And really, sometimes those conversations just take weird twists and turns. The whole thing about the doll, the whole thing about the change in temperature in the room. He's got these items that have been touched by demons, and I got to say, I'm in on all of it. Do you sit there with your arms crossed and your head just on a complete swivel, just saying no, 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 no? Do you not accept that stuff? I mean, if you don't, you don't. That's cool. I'm in. And I'm also in recovery. I got 20 years without drinking. The next hour, the 4 a.m. hour, we always set aside a few minutes of that last hour of the morning to talk about recovery, booze, sex, whatever it is that has made your life unmanageable. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. It's Another Side of Midnight with TJ McCormick on 77 WABC. I'm really glad you're there. Thank you.